we've got another Saw movie, and it's got all of the investigations, autopsies, games, gore, and twists you've come to expect from a Saw movie. And by expect, I mean predict, because you will be able to predict everything about this movie. So let's talk about it. So Jigsaw takes place roughly 10 years after the death of John Kramer, also known as Jigsaw. The story begins with a man being chased by the police and informing them that a new game is about to begin right before he's shot by the police and left in a coma. As soon as this happens, a group full of people wake up in the middle of one of Jigsaw's games in a fight for their life. All the while, the police are trying to figure out who's behind this latest game, and is John Kramer somehow back from the dead? Now, if you've never seen a Saw movie before, you might be intrigued by some of the whodunit, the twists, the turns, the games, and the big reveals. But if you have seen a Saw movie before, this movie's using the same bag of tricks and going back to things that we've seen many, many times before. Be sure to put your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know if you're a fan of the franchise. Are you new to the franchise? Kind of where you fall on spectrum? And what did you think about this particular movie? And just so you know, in a couple days, I'm going to be ranking all of the Saw movies. So tune in for that. If you're a fan of the series, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. With all that said, let's start talking about the positive. And the biggest positive I can give this movie is that the plot line is a lot easier to follow and possibly the most streamlined plot line since the first couple of Saw movies. As the series progressed, the mythology kind of started getting stacked on top of itself, and the timeline was confusing with all of the apprentices and back and forth in the timeline. And this one kind of clears a lot of the clutter, and we just kind of get back to the whodunit, the mystery of trying to stop the game from taking place and the game that's taking place. So it's a lot more streamlined, easier to follow. And if you haven't seen any previous Saw movies, you can watch this movie for what it is. You don't need to see the previous Saw movies, and you can watch this movie and then go back and watch those movies without it being spoiled. It's a continuation without spoiling those ones, because there's just a lot of mythology type stuff that this movie doesn't touch on, and I think for the better with where those movies went, with so much stacked, layered, complex stuff going on with them. Beyond that, I think the Saw movies do a pretty good job of casting some of the, not all the people are great casting, but of casting kind of familiar faces that you've seen into some of these roles. And so it's kind of nice to see them. So like for me, one of the main girls in it is Supergirl from Smallville. Things like that are nice familiar faces to see in there and see them in a very different role, because if she was Supergirl from Smallville, she would have been perfectly fine in this test. But little things like that I enjoy kind of about all the casting in almost all of these movies is kind of nice. And also I'd say that this movie toned down on the torture side of the Saw movies, whereas if you watch like the first one or two Saw movies, certainly there's people in these horrible games, but you're not watching people in extensive agony being tortured for extended periods of time. And as the movies went along, some people hate the term, but the torture porn side of things started to get expanded, where you'd see people in a chair as their arms are being twisted going for extended periods of time. This movie backs down on that type of stuff. And it's not that there's not gore. There's some extremely gory stuff in the movie, and there's people in painful agony in the movie, but it doesn't play out as an audience as excruciating to just watch someone just sitting there screaming as their bones are ripped to shreds and stuff like that made some of the later films a lot nastier. Really, that's kind of it for the positives for me. So we'll move on to the negatives. And really, nothing in this movie makes sense. It's all convoluted. Everything is coincidental. It's all about chance and people standing in just the right places, things happening at just the right time for the plot to be able to move forward. And that's kind of everything about the entire movie from beginning to end plays like that. As you stop and think through what just happened, you went, wait, if this person hadn't done this exact thing, if this person wasn't standing in this exact place, if the police hadn't placed these road strips in just this place, this person wouldn't be at this place to set the full motion of the whole movie in motion. If this person hadn't tried to escape, if this person hadn't chosen this, none of the stuff in this movie happens. from beginning to end, even kind of in the investigation of who done it, the way that plays out, it's entirely coincidental to the characters we're introduced to in one sequence, and it just went, all right, these will just be our suspects for the movie, when that doesn't really make any sense that would be the people that would be tied to all of this, and coincidentally this person happens to be into this, and coincidentally this person to this, and coincidentally this. There's just a lot of things where it's all about coincidence and things just happening at just the right moment, so everything can progress in the story. Beyond that, it's so predictable. You're watching it, and as I said, before the movie started, my buddy basically was able to predict the big twist in the movie. And then as you're watching the movie, you'll be able to piece together like, wait, how is this? And wait, where's this going? And oh, I see what's happening here. And oh, I get what's happening. And there's just so many clues, so many things that are so obviously red herrings, misdirections, tricks that they're playing on you that you start to piece it together pretty quickly what's going on. It gets pretty super obvious in the later part of the movie. And then once things are finally revealed, you're like, okay, you cheated a little bit in there. Some of that doesn't make sense. You lied to me in the way you played certain things out, and other stuff in this was just very predictable. And that leads you to the end of the movie, and it's not very satisfying, though a lot more watchable than basically the last 4 Saw movies, just because it's more streamlined and less focused on watching people being tortured. With all that said, I'd give this one a 4.5 out of 10. The storytelling doesn't make any sense. The plot doesn't make a lot of sense. It telegraphs everything. There's not a lot to recommend here. Even if you're a fan of the genre, you've seen it before. You've seen other Saw movies do almost all of this stuff before. This is just an attempt to reboot a franchise and continue moving forward to make more money because they're dirt cheap to make. If I'm being honest, I don't see this one really appealing to too many more people. It's not going to win people back. It's not going to satisfy the fans of the franchise. It's just more Saw, and it's more of what we've seen before. But that's just my take on it. How about you? What did you think about it? Tell me down below in the comments section. Hopefully we can get a lively discussion. I'm not a fan of the franchise. I have watched all of them. Some of them have been more interesting to me than others. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So join me in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion, and thank you so much for watching.